नमस्ते जानकी जी।
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Together we'll chant Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verses 1 to 10.
ॐ अथ नवमोऽध्यायः श्रीभगवानुवाच इदं तु ते गुह्यतमं प्रवक्ष्याम्यनसूयवे ज्ञानं विज्ञानसहितं यज्ञात्वा मोक्ष्यसे शुभात् राजविद्या राजगुह्यम् पवित्रमिदमुत्तमम् प्रत्यक्षावगमम् धर्म्यम् सुसुखम् कर्तुमव्ययम् अश्रद्धधानाः पुरुषाः धर्मस्यास्य परन्तप अप्राप्य मां निवर्तन्ते मृत्युसंसारवर्त्मनि मया ततमिदं सर्वं जगदव्यक्तमूर्तिना मत्स्थानि सर्वभूतानि न चाहं तेष्वस्थितः न च मत्स्थानि भूतानि पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम् भूतभृन्न च भूतस्थः ममात्मा भूतभावनः यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यम् वायुः सर्वत्र गोमहान् तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्थानीत्युपधारय सर्वभूतानि कौन्तेय प्रकृतिं यान्ति मामिकाम् कल्पक्षये पुनस्तानि कल्पादौ विसृजाम्यहम् प्रकृतिं स्वामवष्टभ्य विसृजामि पुनः पुनः भूतग्राममिमं कृत्स्नम् अवशं प्रकृतेर्वशात् न च मां तानि कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय उदासीनवदासीनम् असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु मयाध्यक्षेण प्रकृतिः सूयते सचराचरम् हेतुनानेन कौन्तेय जगद्विपरिवर्तते
Last time we started the 9th chapter, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. He's going to tell us a great secret, the royal secret, the royal knowledge, um, and what is the need for us to know this knowledge. He told us that moksha se ashubhat, excuse me, you will be liberated from ashubh. Ashubh means inauspicious, literally. But what is that even supposed to mean? What is auspicious and what is inauspicious? Your permanent, your lasting happiness is auspicious. Misery, agitation, unhappiness is unauspicious. To be able to live your life in such a way that you are a source of happiness to yourself and to everybody else is auspicious. Inauspicious is we are agitated and we get everybody else agitated too. Now, it would be very easy for us to be happy and make other people happy by just fulfilling everybody's desires. You fulfill your own desires and you fulfill other people's desires. And that's as simple as it is. But unfortunately, it's not that simple. It's almost a very strange game between having to fulfill desires and knowing which desires cannot be fulfilled, should not be fulfilled. When we think about not fulfilling desires, we only think about being agitated. But that's not correct. We do not fulfill certain desires because by fulfilling them, we will not find happiness. For instance, let's take it away from the abstract and make it concrete. It is the day previous to exams. The child wants to see a movie. Okay, so it's very easy to keep him happy. Let him see the movie, isn't it? But this is one of those desires which, having fulfilled, he will not find happiness. Because when the results come, he won't be happy. When he hasn't done as well as his friends, he won't be happy. When he can't get admission into the place he wants to go, he won't be happy. So there is a decision that we need to take in life. Which desire am I supposed to fulfill and which desire am I not supposed to fulfill? This is the great choice that every one of us as a human being will face. An animal will not face this choice. Only a human being will face this choice. That animal is absolutely fine just fulfilling all his desires. I mean, assuming that he's not in contact with a human being. If he's in contact with a human being, the same laws start becoming applicable to him. In the jungle, you will never find a single zebra, a single lion, a single antelope, a single anybody who is overweight or underweight. But bring them into your house, keep a cat, keep a dog, do something, and suddenly these guys will start developing lifestyle ailments. So as long as you leave the animal to himself, he's good, he's fine. He can just fulfill his desires. But if he comes into contact with human beings, then again his problems also start. Because humans have a choice. Now, what is this great knowledge? This great knowledge, this royal secret, is that knowledge that enables us to make that choice. How do you know how to choose? And having made that choice properly, what you get is auspicious. So that is what we have to learn. He calls it a secret. He calls it a secret because what is a secret? A secret is something nobody knows. So this great knowledge is not known to people. What is the knowledge of how to make that choice? What is that thing by which I will know what this action is going to do for me. It's a royal knowledge. Why is it royal? Because the most powerful knowledge is also a single knowledge. You don't have to study everything in the world to know how to do this. Because this knowledge gives you clarity. Clarity is like having a torch. You shine the torch anywhere and that thing will get known to you. So you don't need to go about collecting every knowledge on the surface of this earth. But you need to understand certain basic principles, certain first principles, certain, what can I say? You have no option but to know this. I mean, you have an option, of course, but if you don't know this, the choices cannot be made properly. And this has to be done systematically because most of us make fairly good choices. It's not that we're all going around making bad choices. The problem is not in those most things. The problem is in that one thing where I'm not getting it. Because that is that area which is killing me. Most of us, most of the time, are pretty good with things. It is that one or two things that is everybody is, what should Greek mythology calls it the Achilles heel. That one or two things, something there. That's the one you have to figure out. Now, for each one of us, that's very different, right? Each one will have to figure it out for ourselves. In fact, you'll see in class also, some people ask questions, you'll say, how silly, everybody knows that. Isn't it? You feel like that. Like, why is he asking? It's so simple. Because you figured that one out. But for the person who hasn't, it's like a mountain in front of him. And sometimes somebody asks a question, you say, yeah, even I don't know this. So obviously, a similar kind of. So everything is so individual. It's so one, let us say. Royal, because the king is one. At the end of the day, what is this knowledge you have to gain? Is only a knowledge of who you are at the end of the day. But to gain that knowledge, many steps have to be undertaken. So he also calls this the supreme purifier. It gets rid of every negativity within us. Think about what is negativity. What is impurity? Impurity is the presence of something else. That's all it is, isn't it? Copper is impure. A sample of copper is impure if there's something other than copper in it. A sample of gold is impure if there's something other than gold in it. Isn't it? I am impure when there is something other than the self. So when you understand the self, you understand that you are the self and only the self exists. And everybody is the self. There is no otherness. So where is the question of impurity? There is no otherness. There is nothing else. There is nobody. There is just the one. And you understand that is the same self. I am that self. You are that self. Every cat, every dog, every mouse, every parrot, everybody is the same self. And having understood that, there is no impurity. It is directly realizable. This is another very important thing about this knowledge. Each one will get it for himself. Nobody can give it to you. You will get it for yourself. You will know it for yourself. There is no prophet, messenger between you and God. Directly realizable. You will know it yourself. Pratyakshavagamam. It's pratyaksha knowledge. Every step forward you take on the path, you will know what has happened. When you realize the self, you will know what has happened. It is not something that you need mediation by somebody else. It's directly realized. It is righteous. It is the path of dharma. It is doing that thing which for you is the right, the path of dharma. Each one of us have a different dharma. Dharma is sometimes interpreted to mean religion, but that's what should I say? Okay, one of the meanings. But real dharma is what, in Shakespeare's words, this above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as night the day. Thou canst be false to any man. This is dharma. Do what according to you is right. You thought about it, you gave it sufficient thought, you came to a conclusion that this is what is correct for you, and you did it. That's dharma. That's the path of dharma. And then you really understand that your dharma could be very different from anyone else's. And then you're not in judgment of anybody else. Whatever they decide is their dharma. We don't know their situation, so we don't know their dharma. And then comes this very strange thing, which I'm sure you will all disagree, but it's the Lord Himself saying it. It is very easy to practice. Well, then, no, it's very difficult to practice. No, He is saying, okay, I'm not saying. He is saying it's very easy to practice. Why is it so easy to practice? Because the moment you understand it, you'll do it. You don't have to try. You just simply do it. So it's very easy to practice in that sense. The moment you understand it, it's done. There's another reason it's so easy to practice. When you do this, there is no internal resistance. You are convinced and you are doing it. You understand what you're doing it. There's nothing from within you stopping you. When you follow your conscience, when you follow what you think is right, when you do, even when you're clear about what you're doing, where you're going, why you're doing what you're doing, your whole personality will back that. There's no confusion. There is no problem. You will go for it, whatever it is. Sraddha, what do you mean practice seeing Brahman everywhere? Who spoke about seeing Brahman everywhere? Please listen carefully. What is easy to do is when you have understood, you will live like that. So concentrate on understanding. Very easy to practice and imperishable. Avyayam. Avyayam, imperishable. Be happy with this one thing at least. That as much as the knowledge as you do gain, as much of the understanding that you do gain, it is imperishable. That means you will never lose it again. If you understand 2% of Vedanta, well, 2% of Vedanta will be with you for the rest of your existence. This Janma or any other Janma, if you believe in any other Janma. So, it's an imperishable knowledge. Once you get the hang of it, it is permanent with you. You, even if you want to leave it, you can't leave it. It's just like, I don't know what. It's just like you learned English. Now, what can you do? Even if you say, I don't want to know English, you still know it, right? It's like that. So this is a great knowledge. It is imperishable. If you get any part of it, it's forever. If you get all of it, then that's all of it is always with you. Rajneesh, by your logic, dharma for a robber would be stealing. As per him, that is right. Correct. You're right, Rajneesh. A robber, for a robber who believes that he should be robbing, that is his dharma. That is true for everybody and everything. It is when we sit in judgment and say, oh, it is wrong to rob. If that's his dharma, if he has come to the conclusion that that's the right thing for him to do, then that is his dharma. If you may recollect, Robin Hood was also a robber, and that was his dharma. So, whatever is anybody's dharma is their business, not our business. Our business is our dharma. Okay, somebody believes that robbing is a good thing. Well, more power to him. I don't think my house should be robbed, so I should lock my doors. I don't have to judge whether he should have this dharma or not. You're good? I don't understand your symbol. First time I've seen this. Looks like a high five, is it? It's a clap. Okay, fine. Deepak, the reference in this verse to chapter 9, Swamiji's commentary, para 3, line 2. Human beings develop desires through their selfish and egocentric activities. Does this statement cover unselfish activities? Won't the unselfish activities also develop desires? Okay, Deepak, what is a desire? A desire is nothing but a thought flow. You know that, right? When your thoughts go to something, you will develop a desire for it. You go thinking of, I don't know, Mercedes, 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 Mercedes. If you keep thinking like that, means when you don't say Mercedes, Mercedes, you say, oh, what a nice Mercedes. Oh, how lovely there is a Mercedes. Oh my God, look, that person has a Mercedes. So what are you going on doing? You're repeating Mercedes, Mercedes, Mercedes is going on repeating in your head. One day, all these thoughts will culminate into, I want a Mercedes. So that's how we create the desire for a mug or for any object in this world, right? So it's nothing but a thought flow. Now, suppose your thought flow is towards feeding the poor, okay? Unselfish desire, feeding the poor. You keep on thinking, oh, so sad that the poor people don't have food to eat. So sad that they have to go to bed hungry. Why doesn't the government do something about the poor, starving people? Repeating that thought over and over again, you create a desire for feeding the poor. All desires are created in exactly the same way. The desire for the self is also created the same way. When you start thinking about the self, what is the truth? What is the reality? You start thinking about it. Is the reality the same in all of us? Is there any difference in my reality and your reality? You keep thinking about this. You create the desire for truth, reality, self, God, whatever it is you want to call it. Okay? So, human beings develop desires through their selfish and egocentric activities. Also works as human beings develop desires through their unselfish activities. Okay, activities means what your body does, what your mind does, what your intellect does. Because when your thoughts are there, it will force you into physical actions as well. So far, so good, Deepak?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. No, not finished yet. So yes, it covers unselfish activities. However, you have learnt before, and that is why you have this problem in the first place, is they tell us to have unselfish desires. For what purpose? Why are we supposed to inculcate unselfish desires?
So that we drop our selfish desires.
So that we drop desires, right? So that's where the problem is coming from. So unselfish desires are meant to reduce desires. Correct. So therefore, unselfish desires reduce desires by a certain law of life, which is the higher the quality, the lower the quantity. So, though you are creating a higher desire, in toto, your desires have reduced, and therefore, inculcating unselfish desires is recommended.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you.
All right, so We covered it, right? The royal knowledge, the royal secret, the supreme purifier, directly realizable, righteous, very easy to practice, imperishable. Imperishable is another way of saying what we have studied earlier in the Gita, which is that this is one field in which there is no loss of effort. Everything else, there is a loss of effort. Bill Gates has made multi-billion dollar, right? But suppose he dies today, what happens to his multi-billion dollar thing? He starts next Janma at scratch. We don't know what scratch, but he starts at scratch. His wealth will not be useful to him. I don't know. Suppose somebody has got a triple PhD. The next Janma, that triple PhD is gone, right? He'll have to start again from KG. He won't start he won't be born and say, look, I did 3 PhDs in my last Janma, so now I have to start from there. No, again he starts KG, or pre-primary, first standard, all that starts again. Not only that, in this Janma too, we can lose what we have, isn't it? We can lose whatever wealth we have, we can lose our relationships, we can lose interest in these things as well. So every other field, when you put in effort, it appears like there could be a loss of that effort. Especially in selfish activities, there's a huge loss of effort. But this knowledge is so great that there is no loss of effort. Whatever you get out of this effort will stay with you forever. Okay, so that's our verse 2. Let us move on to verse 3.
Hari Om Janki ji, Ganesh here. I have one question. So we are saying that the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, if put properly, it will go on to the next Janma also. But we are people who are Jnana Yogis, right? Or we are pursuing the path of objectivity. So how can we believe that? I know that it's authority, that this is coming from authority. So we believe authority here, or how can we grasp, or since if
How
you
do we believe that? Your question is, how do we
Yes,
believe
yes.
that the knowledge will go to the next Janma, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so what is knowledge? Knowledge is nothing but the inculcation of higher values or higher desires in life, right? So let us say that you have inculcated higher desires, higher values. All you care for is the country. Let's say you're Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, your single pointed focus is the country. That's what you care about. Now, because you have grown to the level of the country, all the lower desires have been lost in such a way that you will never find them again. So next Janma, when you're born with that same degree of purity. Because the only thing which you carry with you to your next Janma, if next Janma exists, is your own desires. You means, who are the you who's going to take birth again? It's nothing but the desires. So having gained knowledge means having gained the higher desires, means having lost the lower desires, which means now you're left, let us say, with 50 desires. So next Janma, when you're born, you'll be born with 50 desires. This Janma, if you die with 5,000 desires, next Janma, when you're born with 5,000 desires. So if you were born in this Janma with 5,000, you worked very hard, you gained higher values, you made your desires into 50. Next Janma, your starting point is 50.
Understood, ma'am. Very well. Thank you so much.
Ajay, won't he carry forward his current unexhausted vasanas to his next birth? Yes, Ajay, that's true. He will carry his unexhausted vasanas, and whatever is that vasana bank that you have, that is your knowledge. You can't say, I'm very knowledgeable about Vedanta, but all I care about is having good food. It doesn't work like that, right? So knowledge about Vedanta means what? That you have sublimated your desires already. You are able to conceive of. In fact, your desire is only for higher things now. Okay, Ajay?
Ma'am, can you give an example for this, please?
Like Mahatma Gandhi, he cannot be born next Janma hoping to become a millionaire. That won't happen to him. He will be born next Janma and straight away he will want to work for the nation itself.
Gee, thank you.
Sarthak, instead of saying easy to know, you're saying easy to practice. Is there a reason for that, or am I overthinking? The text, Sarthak, says it is very easy to practice. It doesn't say it is very easy to know. Knowing it will take some effort, but having known it, it is obviously easy to practice because that is now your desire, or you're doing something on your desire is always easy. So it is easy to practice. To practice means when you have the wisdom, you will behave in that manner. So he's not making a claim that it is easy to know, he's making a claim that it is easy to practice. It's very easy to practice, to perform. The words are susukham, kartum. It is easy to do. Kartum, I don't know if you're familiar with Sanskrit. Kartum is the tumanta form. Tumanta indicates to something. Okay, so in this case, to do. It is very easy to do. In English, translated as perform. Very easy to practice, to perform. So that is his claim. So that is what he is saying. Susukham kartum, easy to do. अश्रद्धधाना पुरुषाः धर्मस्यास्य परन्तप अप्राप्य मां निवर्तन्ते मृत्युसंसारवर्त्मनि अश्रद्धधाना पुरुषाः धर्मस्यास्य परन्तप अप्राप्य मां निवर्तन्ते मृत्युसंसारवर्त्मनि अश्रद्धधाना पुरुषाः, those purushaha, those people who are ashraddhadhanaha, who are shraddha. You know what is shraddha? Shraddha is that intellectual capacity in us to take the knowledge, to think about the knowledge, to contemplate on that knowledge until the knowledge becomes us. Shraddha is loosely translated as faith. It's a loose translation. Because what can you say? How can you translate it? There is no English word for it. That's why it's always used. The word shraddha is used as shraddha, and then in brackets we put faith, because what else can you say? So what is shraddha? Shraddha begins in faith, no doubt, but to have shraddha in something means you have the capacity to go to the end of it. And that's what makes the difference between an achiever and a non-achiever. An achiever is somebody who goes to the end of something. He obviously has to begin with faith. He has to begin with faith in that thing, whatever he is wanting to achieve. He has to begin with an understanding, with that understanding in the sense of faith. Like in the spiritual path, what is it? It's a faith that there is something there. I don't know what it is. I call it a name. I call it God or truth or reality. I call it some name, Shiva or Vishnu or Father in heaven or Allah, whatever. I call it some name. And I call it some name because I have to call it something. So I feel there is something there. I don't know what that thing is. And I have undertaken the journey to find out what that thing is. Okay? So dependent on whether you're an emotional person, in which case you would like somebody you can sort of relate to, or you're an intellectual person, in which case you prefer words like truth and reality and self and things like that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which of them you use. The shraddha element is you're not going to give it up until you find out what is it. Is it there? Or is it just like stupid imagination of people? What is it? You're not going to give up till you find out. So shraddha in the spiritual path means you have the faith. The faith to sort of start the journey. Faith is like the tarmac. No, there's no tarmac. The plane cannot take off, right? There has to be a runway, right? If there's no runway, how does the plane take off? So your plane of knowledge takes off on the runway of faith. If you stay on that runway, your plane of knowledge will never take off. It's an essential part, and you go from there, from this faith in something. You take that leap to find out whether your faith is actually true or what does it even mean. So if you don't have the shraddha means you didn't have the faith and you didn't have the consistency and you didn't have the capacity to go to the end of it. All three aspects. If you don't have faith in this dharma, in this supreme knowledge, Oparantapa, aprapya. Aprapya, for all those who are studying Sanskrit, aprapya is the labhyanta form, not having obtained. Prapya, having obtained. Aprapya, not having obtained. Mam, me means that truth, that reality. Nivartante, return. Mrityu samsara vartmani. What is mrityu samsara? It is in what should we say? Okay, last time remember he told us that this is imperishable. If you gain the knowledge, it is imperishable, whatever you do gain. If you don't gain the knowledge, so this is just like the opposite of it. You don't gain the knowledge. Mrityu samsara. Mrityu samsara. What is mrityu samsara? Mrityu means death. You can take it very literally in the sense is as you know this, that when you realize the self, you do not come back to this world, right? You can take that literally. But for most people, that is like, okay, वो पढ़ा था मोक्ष मिलने के बाद ये जीवन फिर से नहीं मिलता, वो स्कूल में कुछ ऐसे पढ़ा था. It doesn't touch our hearts. So let us understand it from a relative sense. What is mrityu samsara? What is samsara? Samsara means our mental involvements. It is just that. Your samsara is not created by what your body does. Samsara is created by the mental involvement in what's going on. So, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Duryodhana is waging a war. Krishna is also in that war. Duryodhana has a samsara about that war because he's completely mentally entangled in it. And Krishna being in the same place at the same time and doing exactly the same thing insofar as he's involved in the war, he has no samsara. He is ever free. He's ever mukta because he has no mental entanglement, no involvement in that. So samsara means your mental entanglements. And what is mrityu samsara? What is mrityu? Let's start. What is mrityu? Mrityu means death. Right? What is death? Death is the end of something. It is the natural consequence of the beginning of something. Birth and death are two sides of the same coin. There can be no death unless there is birth. And there can be no birth unless there is death. Take a stick, just a stick. Okay, here is a stick. Some stick. Take a stick. Okay, here's a stick. Break the stick into two. When you break the stick into two, it is the death of the one stick. It is the birth of the two sticks. So birth and death are two sides of the same coin. When the day dies, night is born. When the night dies, day is born. Two sides of the same coin. The death of 2020 is the birth of 2021. It's two sides of the same coin. Birth and death coexist. It says Mrityu Samsara. Why? If he says Janma Samsara also, it means exactly the same thing. But he says Mrityu Samsara because for some reason we are more frightened of Mrityu than we are frightened of birth. Not realizing it's exactly the same thing. You can't have one without the other. The moment a child is born, unfortunately, he becomes subject to death. Since we are born, we are subject to death. Anything born is subject to death. This is just the fact of life. Now, when you create a samsara in it, that means you get mentally entangled in it, then this change between birth and death and life, this change will be heartbreaking. So Mrityu Samsara is nothing but the agitations caused by change. Birth and death is only a change of a condition. If you're involved in that condition, if you're entangled in any particular condition, any change in that condition will cause agitation. You could be a rich person. If you are entangled in that wealth, any possibility of change in it will create fear in the heart. But if you're not entangled in it, this kind of agitation will not come forth. And that's shown by this famous story of Janaka, which you must all be familiar with, that Ashtavakra, the great sage Ashtavakra, was the guru of King Janaka. And, every class begins on time, right? No class begins for a student. No class doesn't begin because a student doesn't come. Okay, so now Aditi is in this class. Suppose she wasn't in this class. Would we cancel the class because she's not there? Right? So it happens that in any class, it's like that, nothing to do with Aditi. If Manoj is not there, or Shilpa is not there, the class goes on, right? This is the nature of a class. So as long as King Janaka wouldn't come to the class, Sage Ashtavakra wouldn't start. And he was always on time, but he was the king. So occasionally a few minutes late or something, Ashtavakra would politely wait for him to come. So that made all the other students in the class start murmuring. Dekho, Raja ke liye Guru bhi wait karte hain. Like that. They start murmuring within themselves. So the Guru is too smart to not take cognizance of all this. So one day what happened is, with his Yoga Shakti, with his Yoga Maya, Ashtavakra, you could look out of the window and the entire city of Mithila was burning. The palace, these people's houses, everything. Just a huge conflagration. Everybody looked out. Oh my God, it's all burning. Okay, your wife's there, your family's there, your clothes are there, your houses are there, your possessions are there, your whatever wealth is there, everything is there, and it's a massive conflagration. Ashtavakra continued to speak. He was discussing Vedanta, he continued to discuss Vedanta. All the other students looked at that and ran for their lives. Only one fellow continued to sit there, King Janaka. He had more wealth, more anything than any of these people who ran. But he didn't get up and run. He had much more to lose in that fire. He continued. That's why he's considered to be liberated from Mrityu Samsara. Of course, it was all Yoga Maya, so very sheep-facedly, all the other students came back because they went and they saw everything is completely all right. He was the only one who continued sitting. So this is the difference between a person who's entangled and someone who is not entangled. A person who's entangled, his heart will sink if something appears to maybe influence it. Like a mother will worry to death if her daughter says, I'm coming home by 7 and it's 7:05 and that daughter hasn't come. If nothing has happened, maybe nothing has happened, maybe everything is completely fine. But that palpitations will start in the heart. So when we get entangled in something, we start getting extremely affected by it. And in our affectation, we become incapable of dealing with it. I tell you this horrible story, I think I've told you before, but it's a nice story to remember. I mean, it's a horrible story, but it's a good way to remind ourselves of this thing. There was a lady, you know what is that thing, silbatta, that stone that you used to grind. I don't think anyone uses it anymore, but this is an old story. So she was using that silbatta, that whatever, you grind that stone, the grinding stone. And while she was doing that, unfortunately, that thing fell on her toe and smashed it. It was horrible. Not smashed it, but so much. The gory sight, all the blood and all that. And so she screamed because imagine the pain of dropping that stone on your foot. So she screamed in pain and horrible, right? And so there's another lady in the house who came running, saw this thing, that she has dropped the stone. There is blood everywhere. That lady is screaming in pain. And the second lady who came to the kitchen and saw what happened, she fainted. Now a third person has to come and look after two patients. This is what happens when we get affected. You can see there's a bad situation. Instead of taking control of the situation, take control of yourself and the situation, just fall down and faint. So therefore, in life, we make a bad situation worse. Instead of doing what the Gita says, if you find any danger, come under, like the kurma, like how the tortoise withdraws its limbs under its hard shell. Means under knowledge, under the intellect. Withdraw under the intellect immediately. This is the time for you to have your senses working, not for the time for you to not have your senses working. You can't do it because the affectation by the mind is so very much. That's Mrityu Samsara. Even if that situation could have been saved, we will have managed to make a mess out. They no, I will do it when the time comes. Then a simple thing is, when your spouse is being rude to you and saying and being completely idiotic, do you come under your intellect or do you make the situation worse? So don't think only of some major problems in this world. Day to day, every day we are facing these things. So, Mrityu Samsara, entanglements make every situation worse. So if you do not grow with the knowledge, what will happen? You come back to the same situations over and over again, over and over again. This is called the path of Mrityu Samsara. It is not that, excuse me, it is not that we have a problem. So kuch hua, bad hua, good hua, or life chalti rahi. No, it's the same thing over and over and over again. Most common example is these husband and wife fights. Do husbands and wives fight on different issues? Every day they come up with a new issue? No, they're fighting on the same issue. They're just calling it maybe different names. It's the same issue that they never sorted out. Those who are facing financial failure, they're not facing the same thing. Years and years they're going on talking about it. How many people I know? Oh, I can't make enough money. I can't make enough money. I can't make enough money. Years and years. Sometimes with mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, it never gets over. Mrityu samsara vartmani, over and over and over again. So if you don't have shraddha in the higher knowledge, that means you do not have the faith that it will help you, or you do not have the consistency of work, or you will not stick with it till you reach the end of your entanglement, or reach the end wherever you want to be. Aprapyama, not having found that answer, Mrityu samsara vartmani, continue to go round and round in that same whirlpool of madness that has always been there. Sarthak, you always say Bhagwan doesn't have desires, but won't it be more correct to say his desires come out of fulfillment? That's why he isn't entangled. Krishna might have a desire for Pandavas to win. Narada also roams around in the universe for the welfare of us. Many self-realized people teach humanity, which is also a desire. They don't drop away their bodies. Sarthak, please focus on what we are studying right now. Whether the person has desires or doesn't have desires is not our current focus. Yes, it is true. The formula is human minus desires is equal to God. Correct. Now, how they function, why they function is a different discussion, which you can bring up in any forum where we do these different discussions. At the moment, focus on the idea which we are doing over here. What is the idea? If we do not have shraddha in this dharma, that means you don't have faith, consistency, and the ability to reach the end of the journey. Okay, because some people may be very consistent, but they'll give up halfway. They don't go to the very end of the journey until their entanglement is over in whatever area they choose or in the whole thing. So if you don't have faith, consistency, and that capacity to go to the very end of it, then you will repeat the same mental entangles over and over again. That is the point over here. So if you have a question pertaining to this, not understanding this concept, you can take it up. General questions we can take up some other time. Okay. Okay, Sarthak. Please don't let anything take your mind away. What determines the strength of an individual's shraddha, Deepak? Self-effort or something else? What determines the strength of an individual's shraddha? I guess the strength of his intellect, Deepak. By strength, you mean like how much shraddha a person will have, right?
Yes.
Yeah, his intellect. Depending on how strong his intellect is, because shraddha is a capacity of the intellect. So, depending on the strength of the intellect, will be the strength of shraddha.
Thank you.
Shraddha is really the single most important thing, not only for spiritual growth, but for achievement of anything in this world. So I don't know if you remember chapter 17, for all those who have been there. He says, Shraddha makes the man. So many people may sing, but they are not Lata Mangeshkar. So many people may play cricket, but they are not Sachin Tendulkar. So many people are interested in making money, but they are not Bill Gates. So what is the difference? We have so many interests, so many desires, so many things we'd like to do, but we haven't. What is the one difference? It is the shraddha. We have the shraddha. So Krishna says this: a man is what his shraddha is. Eventually, what you have become is entirely based upon your shraddha. It is not based on those interests. Okay, so that is verse 3. Let us go to verse 4. Unless anyone has a question on verse 3, on the point of verse 3, not general question.
Ma'am, just one question. This shraddha is, as a objective person, we are looking at something beyond mind, body, and intellect, right? That should be a logical thing, that a logical goal, and we have to work through that, right? Because bhaktas, they have Krishna, right? We have to go and meet Krishna at the end. We have to go to his heaven. For objective jnanis, it is beyond mind, body, and intellect, and go till we reach that. Is it my right understanding?
The right understanding, Ganesh, is that we don't know what that final point is. For
Okay.
the moment, we are going to say that, yes, we are in search of truth. We don't know what that truth is. When we get there, we will find out. But I'm determined to find out what the truth is.
But that is, we are on the path to an unknown thing.
Yes,
Okay.
of course, we are on the path to an unknown thing.
That
But
is
that is not
tough to
something.
grasp for a person who's logical in this world, who's always looking at logic, to go to an unknown.
The logic is only the first step of getting your reasoning correct. After that, there are so many other steps.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Okay.
just, if you don't have logic, how are you going to reason? But having got logic, that's not the end of the game. That's just your like sort of beginning. You getting your, your earlier steps right. We are about to do it now. We're going to do the whole lot on Thursdays. And how do you know what you know? What is the role of logic and other things?
Okay, Jay, thank you so
In
much.
there.
Janki ji,
Yeah.
you
One
said
second, 1 minute, Pratap bhai, let me see. There were some other questions here. Akhila. So Shraddha includes faith, consistency, and capacity of the intellect all combined. Shraddha includes faith, consistency, and the capacity to reach the end of the journey, Akhila. Now, these three are the capacity of the intellect, all three. Faith, I know everybody has got up and is jumping now. How is faith intellect? Faith begins with the recognition of our own ignorance. So it is your intellect that recognizes that we don't know. And therefore your mind has faith in something. Okay,
Okay.
Akhila?
Yes, Janki ji.
Yeah, go ahead.
You said Shraddha is faith and beyond. So this little still clarity required. What is that beyond?
You don't know that. It's almost like if you were a scientist. Okay, you're trying to answer the question, how did the universe begin, for instance, or what does the universe contain? So you have to go hunt that down, right? You don't know what is there. So most pursuits begin with that. Even like, for instance, in your own field, when you have to whatever gain victory over some enemy or something, you don't know initially where is the enemy, what is he doing, what does he have. First you will find out all that, right? Because everything begins in ignorance. So when you are going to battle for India, over the sea or over the air or over land, whatever it is, you don't know where is the enemy, what is his plan, what does he plan to do. It's all in ignorance. But you have faith in one thing, that I will protect my nation. You have that faith. Now you'll go about finding out everything that needs. Who is harming the nation? Where is he? How do I deal with him? So it always starts, everything, any conquering starts with always something unknown. Like, how did Columbus go out? He said, I know there is India somewhere. Now let me go find it. That sort of thing.
Thank you.
Janki
Thank
ji,
you,
I
Jan.
have a question.
Go ahead, Aditi.
So if you have faith and your mind is always on that, I have the faith, sometimes couldn't it lead to biasness of, okay, I know that there is something or unknown, and then everything that comes your way, will it not get affected by that biasness?
Yes, of course. But you're not supposed, your faith is not an assertion of something. Faith is always a seeking of something. If you're asserting it, that means you must be knowing it. How are you asserting something that you don't know? Faith is a seeking, not an asserting.
But wouldn't it probably lead to biasness without you knowing that it's seeking rather than asserting?
Of course.
How do you differentiate with that thin line?
Is the same answer, Aditi. Develop an intellect.
Okay.
Be your intellect. Nobody else can answer that question.
Yeah, yes, I got it. Thank you, Janki.
Okay,
Jankiji, one quick question, if I may.
go ahead, Bharat.
So, when we say that knowledge deserts the person in a problematic situation, so how does a person know that he is well established in knowledge? Is it only the tough situations which will tell him?
No, knowledge is the sort of thing. No, not like that. It is, you begin with, I am not established in knowledge, because none of us are. Unless you realize you're not established in knowledge. So you don't even ask that question, am I established in knowledge? You say, okay, whatever has happened, how am I going to deal with it? And how am I? Two important questions in my life. Number one, whatever is in front of me, how am I dealing with it? Number two, how far into the future can I see and plan for? So that is the only two things we can do. We can't do anything else. We can't know, am I established in knowledge? Because the moment you think I'm established, something will come along and you will find out just how unestablished we all are. So we don't do that. We deal with what is currently in front of us, and we make a projection, we make a plan for what we are doing for the future, because we don't want things to arrive at our doorstep, right? We want to arrive somewhere. Things are not to arrive at us. So we don't live life reactively, we live it what they call proactively. We have decided where we are going and we're going to work towards that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Hari Om.
Hari Om, Janki ji. Thank you.
Hari Om, Janki ji.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hari Om, Janki ji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janki ji.
Hari Om Janki ji.
Thank you.
Hari Om Janki ji.
Thank you, Janki.
Hari Om, Janki ji.
Hari Om.
Hari Om Janki ji.
Hari Om.
Thank you.